Good afternoon and welcome to today's IPSE webinar on the topic of stories for social media. My name is Luann Wise. This webinar will last probably about 20-25 minutes. There will be time for questions at the end, but if you have any burning questions, or for example, you can't see my screen or hear me properly, then please do pop something in the question or chat box as we go, and I will keep an eye on those. I have just hit the record button, so I have big letters next to me. I've hit the record button, so you will receive a copy of the recording and slides afterwards. And if you're watching this as a recording and not live, then thank you very much for watching it afterwards. So we will start with a brief introduction, and then I'm going to take you through the topic of stories, along with some top tips and how-tos, as well as some kind of facts and stats and why you should be using this kind of content on your social media. So if you haven't met me before or listened to a webinar, or just if it's been a while and there's a bit of a recap, my name is Luann Wise. I've been a marketer in agency, client side and consultancy roles for over 20 years now, currently running my own consultancy business for the last 8 years. I am a chartered marketer. I'm proud to be a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing. I had this great idea a few years ago to write a book. It was on my bucket list and I achieved it. It's called Relax, It's Only Social Media. And then I went on to create something called the Social Media Planner, which breaks it down. If you're like me and you love checklists and processes, then that's the tools to help you get this stuff done. My relationship with social media has been going on since about 2008 now. I think I first had a conversation with someone about social media as a marketing comms channel, started to use it for myself and for the clients and the businesses that I work with, and really proud that I'm actually involved directly with some of the social media platforms. I am a course instructor for LinkedIn Learning. I have some courses live online on their platform, which you can access if you're a premium LinkedIn member. I'm also an accredited trainer for Enterprise Nation and She Means Business campaign, which means I've had Train the Trainer on Facebook and Instagram. In fact, my recent training was only a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully everything I'm sharing with you today is super fresh and up to date. I am a coach for Google's Digital Garage initiative as well, involved with them and the activity they're doing to trying to upskill people on digital tools. And I'm really proud to be an ambassador for IPSE. I have been for about 2 or 3 years now, hence hosting a webinar for them most months. So that's me behind the screen. Thank you for coming along and joining me today. The topic is stories. And just to kind of take a step back before we look into the world of social media and stories, that stories are our oldest form of communication. This is, a cave painting. It's how people started communicating. It's how we started to learn, was through visuals. If you think back to when you first started learning and you're really young, it's always through visuals and stories. And particularly because visuals are a universal language, no matter where you are, we can understand some pictures. And visuals can be processed so much faster than words, 60,000 times faster as well. They can evoke empathy, inspire action. And so stories, when it comes to social media, have been around for 2 or 3 years now, since stories were introduced. They started on Snapchat before being used on Facebook, Instagram first, and then Facebook. And they're actually being used on YouTube now as well. I've got some more stats as we go through. But really, I think we can see stories as effectively another news feed, but one that really is all about visuals rather than text. So as I said, stories, the concept of using stories on social media was first pioneered by Snapchat, and as many of their features have been incorporated into the other social media platforms. Instagram actually launched stories in August 2016, so still feels new to some of us, but it is 3 years that they've been around. And more than 1 billion people are using stories every day now across Facebook's family of apps. So that's Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. If you saw that they actually rebranded last week as a company to try to incorporate all the brands that sit across their family. So 1 billion people using stories every day. And more than 3 million advertisers are running ads across stories in Instagram, Facebook, and Messenger. So if you're using stories, then that is something that's and advertising, then that's something to consider as well. Now, I said that YouTube have started to introduce stories for creators, which means you need to have over 10,000 subscribers, but really interesting that they're taking on board this kind of visual communication. And recently, literally in the last few weeks, Google have launched stories for Google Photos in a new feature called Memories, which is a bit like your Facebook on this day, this happened a few years ago. It's only private on Google right now, but I'm sure that this whole kind of stories and the way they work is something that's here to stay. And it is here to stay, and it's something that's a real focus for the social media platforms right now. This is a quote from Mark Zuckerberg in February 2018 when he did his annual conference and what's happening and what are they working on. And he said, "We expect stories are on track to overtake posts in the feed as the most common way that people will share across all social apps. And that's because stories is a better format for sharing multiple quick video clips throughout your day. The growth of stories will have an impact on how we build products and think about our business." So there's a couple of points in here in that it's about video as well as static images and text. It's interactive. And it's really interesting that a year ago, Facebook said how they are focusing on stories and how they're going to build and develop their products over time as well. So it really is a format that if you're not using it right now, you need to start using it. If you're using it a little bit, then it's something perhaps to research a bit more, take a bit more seriously, and incorporate into your activity as a whole separate track of activity. So, what are stories? They can be photos taken from your camera roll or taken live in the moment, or they can be videos. On Instagram, those videos can be up to 15 seconds. If they are longer than 15 seconds, then Instagram will chop it up into 15-second stories. On Facebook, it can be slightly longer at 20 seconds. Content, the thing about stories and why they are so different to what goes on in the feed is that it's basically content that disappears after a short period of time. On Instagram and Facebook, they disappear after 24 hours. If you have got over 10,000 followers, subscribers on YouTube, and you're going to start using stories on there, then those stories will disappear after 7 days. But just to go back to the point about video and using video in your stories, over 50% of Instagram stories are now video. So if you're not doing video, then again, that's something that you should be looking at or planning a bit more seriously for 2020. And a tip here is that 60% of people view Instagram story videos with the sound on, but not everyone does. So the top tip would be to prepare your story so that it's okay with the sound off. But if people do put the sound on, then it kind of adds a whole nother level to it. I think when you come to stories, it's about thinking about them as an exclusive feed of content for your most dedicated followers. And as I'll show you on the next few slides, you can get really creative with stories as well. So whether it is video to camera, pre-recorded videos, it could just be graphics, it could be captions and overlays. It's all about in the moment activity because it only does stick around for 24 hours. So my top tips around using stories are to post them when your audience are most active. If you think about the fact that, I'll show you shortly as well, that stories come straight to the top of your feed. If you're on the Instagram app or you're on Facebook, it's stories that you see first. So you need to know when your audience are most likely to be online, when they're active, to make sure that you really get in front of them at the best time. And you will find the answer to that for you in your Facebook insights or in your Instagram insights. You can choose who can see your stories. As I said, it seems to be about kind of your most dedicated followers are going to see your stories appear right at the top of their feed, especially if you're targeting them at the right time. But your visibility replicates the privacy settings that you have on your profile. So if you have a private account, it will only be available to people that are seeing privacy as well. You can on Instagram choose a closed friends list. If you are more open, more followers, you can just show those stories to a specific list as well. So think about who you want to see your stories as well when you're sharing them. How many times should you post? The kind of the holy grail question that most people ask when it comes to social media. I think the answer is always when it's relevant, when you have something relevant to say. You'll know when it's relevant when you're targeting everything at your target audience, so it's really focused. But primarily, the most important thing is about being consistent and showing up consistently. Whether that's once a day, whether it's once a week. I know someone that does a story every Friday with a roundup of his week, and he tells us what's going on and what he's up to. And I love that. He's consistently doing it every Friday to the point that sometimes I'm now looking out for it. Some people will post every day. It's up to you, but be consistent and have it as a planned piece of activity. Even if you know that you go to lots of events, then make sure that it's planned as part of your networking activity and your attendance at those events. You can schedule stories in advance. I know that Buffer have a scheduling tool. I know that there are specific scheduling tools such as Storito is one that I've used. Planoly you can schedule, as well as using Facebook Creator Studio, which is increasingly the way we're being pushed towards scheduling and planning our content as well. So in the moment does work really well, but if you do need to schedule some things in advance, then you can use some tools for that. Where does it work best? Well, timely content, because it is that in the moment, raw content that people are looking out for. The thing about stories is that it also, because people know that it has a short shelf life, it can trigger an immediate reaction, whether that's a like or a comment or a message. In fact, 1 in 3 stories gets a direct message. It's a really great way of boosting your reach and engagement and getting out to more people. And with social media content, full stop, it's about connecting with your audience. So it's kind of showing them content that they are going to connect with you and get to know you. So stuff that works really well on stories is user-generated content. So if people are tagging you in or using your products or posting pictures of you at events or doing what you do, then share it. Share user-generated content, because that's really easy if they're mentioning you, tagging you in, to just hit that share button. And it tells a story to your audience as well. It's really great if you can pre-plan and pre-prepare kind of how-to content and tutorials, how to use your products, show people using them in action in situ. Going behind the scenes, brilliant for going behind the scenes, the kind of the raw content of what you're doing, what you're up to. I have examples that I've used on Instagram stories where quite often I'll go and do a short video if I'm teaching or training somewhere, a short kind of promo video, but I'll always do a behind the scenes shot as well that I'll share on my Instagram stories. In fact, I had one recently where I really wasn't tall enough to be in the shot. So if you actually see the behind the scenes photo, it's me standing on a crate to be able to set the perfect video scene up. So people like that kind of behind the scenes content. What are you doing? And you can also do really time sensitive promotions on there as well, because it does stay around. So if you're doing specific offers, if it's related to awareness days or Black Friday campaigns is coming up, then you can do your time sensitive offers as well and get people involved in there. So how do we do this? If you haven't done one before, then I'd encourage you to spend a few minutes after this webinar or after you've watched it, having a play around. On Instagram, it's really easy. You open up the app, you click on the camera where that hand is pointing, and you either grab something from your camera roll, something that you've taken already, or you take a photo or a video right there and then to post it to your story. That's alternatively, if you're just doing something to the feed, it's in the bottom at the center versus being there at the top left-hand corner of the camera to add a story. And on Facebook, it's a case of opening your app on your phone, and you will see stories now at the top of your page, and you'll be able to click add a story. I'm going to talk in a few minutes about integrating Facebook and Instagram stories if you want to post the same thing on both. If you just want to do them on your Facebook page, then you can do it right there then as well. Click add a story, and again, it would open up your camera roll or allow you to take a camera or a photo or a video right there in the moment. The wonderful thing about stories is while it is visual, you don't need to be a professional photographer or videographer or creative. There are so many inbuilt creative tools that allow you to make your stories fun, make them interactive. You can add stickers to them. You can add filters on your photos. You can mention people. You can add polls, get people to vote. You can get people to ask you questions. When you are in the app, once you've picked your picture, there'll be a set of icons along the top. I'm trying to demonstrate to you, but you can't see me. Whether you want to add text to it or find an image or a sticker or a poll, it's all on there. They roll out new things all the time, so you may have something slightly different to one of your friends if you're looking at those. But do just have a play around and see how you can make your stories fun and interactive as well on both Facebook and Instagram. Now, even though they do disappear after 24 hours, you can actually save them if you wish. You can, when you've posted your story on Instagram, you would see along the bottom of the screen, save to highlights. And highlights means that you can save them to your profile, and anyone else coming along looking at your profile can have a look at previous stories. So if you have a look at this Dishmatic account, you can see that we've got some stories here called Fans, Bathmatic, New Heads, Pink, BCA, which is breast cancer awareness. So whenever we've posted stories that are in those categories, we will save it as a highlight so that people can come and have a look at it afterwards. It just looks really great at the top of your feed as well, because it's usually the more interactive content than the static feed of images. On Facebook, you can archive your stories. You'd need to have that as something that you've switched on, and only you can see your story archive. Perhaps they'll follow Instagram at some point as a highlight, I'm not sure, but at least you can save them for now to look back on yourself. Another top tip here is to perhaps create some stories at some point with the intention of saving them as a highlight. So for example, just as I've got an about category on my website, I have an about highlight on my Instagram page. So I did a story one day of some kind of things about me and my business so that I could specifically save them and have an about us, about me highlight on my profile, so that anyone visiting me for the first time or just coming back and looking what I do can see that kind of about me profile on my Instagram. So the difference between feed and story, apart from the fact that stories disappear after 24 hours unless you save them, is that these two kind of really interact now. It's worth about, while you have a plan for content on your feed and a plan for content on your stories, it's also worth thinking about how they work together. And what people are doing increasingly is using stories to direct people to the feed. And you can do this really easily. You could just create a story and say, look at feed. Or if you've already posted something to your feed on Instagram, when you've got that image open, if you click on the paper airplane icon, it will allow you to add that post to your story. On Facebook, there's a few things you can do. If you've already got something on your newsfeed, it will allow you to share that post to a story. If you're using the events feature on Facebook, if events are key for you and you've highlighted an event, then again, you could share that as a story. So it's kind of really allowing you to repurpose your content and share it in a different format quite quickly. And also, this is a relatively new feature that's appeared on my app, is that once I've done an Instagram story, there's something along the bottom, just a white icon that comes up to say, share this to Facebook stories. So that's worth doing as well. It doesn't take too much extra effort to post it as an Instagram story and then immediately share it to your Facebook page story as well. So really do consider how the two elements work together. Just a couple more slides to think about, and that is the good thing is, of course, your time spent doing this, is it worthwhile? Is it going to help your business? Is it going to achieve any objectives? Then the answers are always in your own profile, just as they are for the best times to post, and you can have a look at analytics. On Instagram, you need to have made sure that you've switched your profile to a business account. And on Facebook, you need to have turned on Stories Insights. And it may be something that if you're looking at your insights, it's a prompt that comes up. If not, just check out Facebook Help and it will tell you where to go to turn on those insights. Only you can see the data on your stories. While your story is still live on Instagram, you'll always be able to see who's seen it. But when you look into your insights, you'll be able to see things such as how many people opened it, how many people engaged with it, whether they took any action on there, if there was something they needed to reply to or a poll to get involved with. Impressions and reach is kind of where stories are really useful. So think about how you're going to measure success and the purpose of using it, but consider that this format of content on social media is increasingly popular, increasingly easy to do via your phone because all the tools are built in to the apps, and that it is something that's really engaging because it appears first above the news feed that everyone has to scroll through. So I would encourage you, either right now or after this session, I'd ask you to get interactive, to go to Instagram and to do a story today. And if you want to mention or tag in either myself at Luann Wise or Team IPSE at Team IPSE, we will take a look at those and share them with our own audiences. I'd love to see what you're doing on Instagram stories. It is almost 1 o'clock, so a nice short sweet webinar, hopefully packed with some tips and insights for you. When you get the slides, I have put some additional resources, so if you've got stuck or have any more questions, you can take a look at those afterwards. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, then pop them into the box. Can you use more than one hashtag using a hashtag sticker? Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to use a sticker. Sometimes you have to use text. Sometimes you have to do it as a mention to include people in the post. It could be that you have several stories and use a hashtag on each one rather than try to do everything on the one story. So there are some limitations, but we have to remember that this is free and that it's fun and interactive. So think about what's the most important thing and the primary tag or hashtag you want to use. I've sometimes done multiple images and used a different hashtag on each one so that I can get some different reach on each different post. It seems that you can't add a link to a story. By link, I think that means mentioning, so an at mention of someone. There is more functionality that you get with Instagram stories when you have over 10,000 followers. So that may be where you're thinking about links. Something I've not talked about in terms of Instagram today, but also Instagram shopping as well, and adding in links that way. So I would keep it really simple with hashtags and at mentions to start with. You mean a website link? So yeah, that's probably when you've got many more followers and you kind of see the swipe up for more information. But I wouldn't consider Instagram so focused on driving traffic to websites. It really is about kind of entertainment, reach and engagement, and connecting with your audience in a kind of visual, behind the scenes, timely manner, rather than driving significant amounts of website traffic as you might do with Twitter or Facebook. Those first couple of questions came flying in. I'm going to finish today's session to give you time to go and do an Instagram or a Facebook story. I look forward to seeing some of those if you do tag either myself or Team IPSE into those. My next webinar is on the 9th of December. where I will be doing a roundup of all the social media changes, probably not all of them, the key social media changes that have happened throughout 2019, ones we need to be aware of, see how much has changed over the last 12 months. And if you have questions on any social media platform or where things might be going in 2020 for your activities, then I look forward to seeing you next month. Thank you.